On Sports Radio, The Ticket.
Yes, football and beer week continuing on Idaho Sports Talk, getting you ready for the NFL draft. But Prater, it's the Blind Appeal College Football Hour. So let's back up a little bit and talk one of our favorite things in this world, college football, with one of our favorite guests on this show. Head football coach of the Idaho Vandals, Jason Eck, joins us. Coach, welcome back to Idaho Sports Talk. Your spring game is Friday night. You can actually watch this spring game, Boise State fans. Shot at you. It's on ESPN Plus, 8 o'clock Mountain Time, 7 Pacific. Coach Eck, welcome back, man. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Good to be on with you guys, and we love our partnership with ESPN to get our game streamed there online. That's awesome.
That's going to be sweet, man. What's been the spring football mindset for you guys, Coach?
You know, really, I'd say the number one thing is we had to get better at the line of scrimmage, and I think we've made some great strides there. I think we've improved in the defensive line and the offensive line. Jake Cox has had a great spring at tight end. I think emerged as our starter there, and those were really areas of concern. Besides that, it was a lot of keeping guys healthy, keeping Giovanni healthy, keeping Hayden Hatton, keeping Jermaine Jackson, a lot of our best players. So we're not doing a lot of tackling with our first group just because I think you end up having more injuries when you have piles of bodies. But I think we're right where we need to be at this point.
And newcomers, I mean, with the transfer portal and whatnot, I mean, are you doing a good job, you think, you and your staff, of assimilating? Obviously, you want to get better every year. You want to get better players in this program every single year. Do you think, Coach, the talent level where you have what you see right now on the day-to-day, much bigger, much better than you had it maybe last year when you first got this gig?
I think we're improving. Jakari Lermond was a big nose guard we brought in. He's about 335 pounds, and he transferred from Lincoln University in Missouri. Not exactly a known powerhouse, but he's a big biscuit inside now. He can run. He plays his tail off. I think he's really going to give us a lot of strength inside there. And then Tylen Coleman has done a good job at defensive end. Him and Sam Brown are probably in a battle for the starting defensive end spot opposite Malachi Williams. And then Terry and Rainey is starting for us at left tackle right now, who's a transfer who came in, and he's done a nice job as well. He'll have to hold off Jason Hallbeck, who will be coming back from injury in the fall. But I think we did a good job. Trey Thomas is another guy we brought in at mid-year who's starting for us at will linebacker. So I think we certainly did add some talent at mid-year that's helping us out.
Idaho Vandals football coach Jason Eck, spring game Friday night on ESPN Plus. Coach, I hate asking this question, but in this day and age, you kind of have to. In terms of, you talked about your stars, you talked about McCoy, you talked about Hatton, and you talked about keeping them mentally, fresh, keeping them injury free. But mentally, how about mentally healthy in terms of happy where they are? Did you have to fight at all to keep them out of the transfer portal, or was this a smooth off season for your superstars?
Well, we lost a couple guys. We lost Paul Mwala recently, who was a second-team all-conference guy last year, and he had transferred to us from Notre Dame, and kind of a different stage in life. A guy who's engaged in things, so I think is going to be looking at some opportunities to maybe get closer to family. And Paul did a great job for us. We wish him well, but we're going to miss him. And then Kamari Bailey was kind of a situational player for us. Played a lot on third down. And was a good pass rusher. So. We still had some losses in the transfer portal, but, very happy to have, Hayden, Jermaine, those guys. I think there's definitely a temptation out there, but, we kind of educate the guys. The one thing I do think you might be able to play in front of bigger crowds, potentially get more NIL money. Again, a lot of times you don't know that for sure until you get there.
Sure.
But the NFL scouting is so thorough. I really think, you do not, going 1 year to a bigger school doesn't really help your chances. You can go from the Big Sky Conference and get drafted or make it as a free agent. We saw, our linebacker just signed with the Falcons this offseason who got a huge second contract. You had a guy from Montana State get drafted in the second round last year at linebacker. So you can be a pro from here. Really, it's just about you, the tape you're putting out and the plays you have. And, that's our message to a lot of guys who may have those options to go there. And, we got to do a great job giving them a great experience here. So they're having a lot of fun being a part of this program, and they feel like they're getting better.
Giovanni McCoy is the superstar, the poster boy of your football team with a lot of support. So you said you were trying to keep him fresh this spring. How do you do that and keep getting better? And what's the magic touch in terms of protecting his body but getting him better on the football field?
Well, I think our defense has done a really good job. We have like a halo rule with Vonnie. You don't get too close to him at all. And I think our defense has done a much better job than probably they did last spring ball when we didn't really have a starter. It was staying away from the quarterback, which is really good. And then number two, it's a lot of mental work. We got to keep doing a lot of job in the film room with him. I think with your best players, you got to challenge them to, help watch some, NFL players or real high level college players, try to look at some techniques and things they can emulate to keep them stimulated. But I think you really do have to have a plan for your best players and continuing to get them better without physically putting a lot of stress on them. And it's a little easier at the quarterback position. I know like Anthony Woods, our running back, we've tackled him twice all spring. We gave him a couple reps, short yardage, because that's a role he didn't have last year.
Yeah.
He's frustrated because sometimes we're whistling stuff down that if you watch the tape last year, he makes a lot of those tackles miss. But it's for the good of the football team. Not, we're not trying to win spring ball. No one ever put a banner up for spring ball.
I think you said that last year, Coach. I think you told me, hey, there's never been a contract extension given for a good spring game. So
I like to be competitive and all that, but again, a lot of times, Malachi Williams has had a great spring rushing the passer, and Giovanni's had a great spring. I don't want to find out if Malachi can get him down or Giovanni can escape. We'll figure that out the first game.
Are we going to see at the spring game? We're going to watch this thing on ESPN Plus, 7 p.m. Pacific time Friday night. Are we going to see any Jermaine Jackson, Hayden Hatton, Giovanni McCoy?
You're going to see all those guys now. You're going to see a little bit of a modified format where you're not going to see live tackle with our ones. You're going to see some live tackle with our twos throughout the whole scrimmage. But when our first string is out there, we're going to be whistling it, quick whistle when it's, when they get tagged off on or when they get thudded up. Because again, I didn't want to hold those guys out. I want fans to be able to see them, but I also don't want to, put them at additional risk for injury. Because I think that's the one thing we've definitely done now is I think our ones are pretty good. We got to keep improving our depth. Some positions at twos we have really good twos, but at other positions we got to keep growing that, and we just got to be smart at the positions where we have big drop offs. It's not worth the risk reward to tackle those guys right now.
Coach, last year you had to bring this sucker down to Eagle High School, and I thought that was cool for the Treasure Valley. I know you were working on the Kibbe Dome, and it was by need, and your priority is certainly the Moscow area and the Kibbe Dome in that campus. I get that, but any chance that every 2, 3, 4 years maybe you could pop back down here? Did that experiment work well last year, or are you convinced that you got to stick in Moscow?
You know what? I think there were some positives out of it. I think with inflation and everything, travel's just expensive. That was the biggest negative is just, putting the guys up in the hotel for a night was, whatever, $159 a room. And then, the charter buses down there. So I still don't mind it, but I think it might be like a once every 5 year type deal. Okay. You got to do a good job of kind of fundraising it just so it doesn't, hammer our, athletic budget that way. But I think there was a lot of positives with the fan base down there that were good. But, it's always nice to sleep in your own bed. That's a good part about being up here at home this year.
Coach, there's the emotion that this fan base has been feeling over last year's run and heading into this season. We set a record there at the Vandals Scholarship Fund for money raised. You've noticed probably day in, day out, just kind of the mindset, how excited this fan base is. Last year you kind of had to convince them, hey, here's what you're going to do. And then now it's almost like, okay, well, here's what's in place. Like what have you noticed day to day just up there where Vandal Nation is now compared to 365 days ago?
Well, I think a lot of people are, wearing their pride on their sleeve a little bit more. I think Vandals are a prideful bunch. And, I think they're just a little, shouting a little bit louder, maybe wearing their Vandal colors a little bit more often, which is good. And, we embrace high expectations. Again, I didn't come here to be here for 5 years and have low expectations every year. That's not the way you want it to go. So, we got to embrace that. We got to embrace that we're going to get better shots from teams next year. Teams are going to, be more excited to play Idaho on their schedule where, probably last year going into the year, Eastern Washington and Montana didn't have our game circled. Well, I bet they got it circled now after we beat both of them last year. So we got to embrace that. And, that's what you got to do to be a championship team. You got to beat other good teams in big games where it's a big game for both of you. And I think that's exciting. I think we're embracing the increased expectations this year.
Coach, what about the roster? I count about 25, 26, 27 Idaho kids on your roster, maybe about 2/3 of those from here in the Treasure Valley. And and they're almost all freshmen and sophomores that are young. You've done a great job over the last year of getting the Idaho talent into Moscow. So through this spring ball process and maybe this offseason, who are some of the Treasure Valley kids, the Boise area kids that you expect to compete and be competitive right off the bat on this fall?
Well, you've asked me about this guy before, so I think you'll be happy to hear this, but Nick Romano has had a really good spring.
Nice.
Last year he got, a little bit more limited, action, was more of a special teams player, but, because of graduation and some guys, leaving the program, he's been our clear number 2 tailback behind Anthony Woods. And, when we're in those tackling situations, he's been the guy taking the bulk of the carries. And I think he's shown the ability to, to break some tackles, to run through things. He's done a nice job that way. I think Logan Harris, who's from, I believe, Centennial down there, he's probably our top reserve O-lineman. He was a little bit in a battle there for a starting spot and, didn't quite land the starting spot, but I think he's a backup that we can really trust and, has some game experience, which is always a really good thing. Trace Higgins, who's from out in Nampa, was having a nice spring. He's had a few injuries. He had a concussion and missed a little time, and then had another contusion. But he's a guy who showed some flashes. He had a nice touchdown catch yesterday in practice. So I think he's a guy that I think could end up finding a role and hopefully will make an impact on special teams. And then we got a big freshman class now. We got I think 38 freshmen coming in, 24 on scholarship, and 14 good walk-ons coming in. So that'll be our big step here this summer and in fall camp is evaluating where can some of those guys help us, and can they be guys we plug in and be a part of our depth right away.
Coach, we had Cody Hawkins on last hour catching up with things in Pocatello, and Prater asked him about kind of the transfer portal and the state of college football and really the max exodus of what's going on in Boulder. The rumor is Prime and his staff, they're telling guys that, your scholarship's no good here basically anymore. And that's a tough thing for a lot of these kids to have to handle and whatnot. And that just wasn't as prevalent before the transfer portal. It felt like, and you've inherited a program. A lot of coaches go there and you take what you're given and you try to work. And obviously Coach Prime has his philosophies too. Are you worried about college football? Does that bug you a little bit when you see stories like this? I mean, I think the count, what is it, Prater, that they've lost just in the last 24 hours?
23.
They've lost 23 guys in 24 hours. What's Jason Eck think about that?
Yeah, I don't think that's what college sports were meant to be when they first started, but I do think you have to evolve and, you got to embrace changes and you got to try to win the portal. I know we're not going to be able to keep all of our guys here, but we got to keep using the opportunities we have. And unfortunately, sometimes stuff, trickles downhill. We might lose a guy to a Power 5 program. Again, this nose guard who I'm excited about was a Division II kid, who played really well in Division II. And I think what people, might not always realize is there's a lot of overlap between levels, and to be a championship FCS program, to win the national championship, you probably need about 15 Power 5 players in your roster. Okay. And they also have to have such a good experience that even though they could go somewhere, they don't want to leave. So that's a challenge. And you got to do a great job with your players, having a great experience. And then Coach Schleisner said this in our staff meeting the other day, and it's something we talked about at South Dakota State. I think it really helps you when you recruit. The more local you can recruit, the better. Because I do think when you recruit guys within that, 5-6 hour radius where their families are driving to every game, they're getting great support, whether they're Boise kids. And then I'd put Seattle and Portland in there too. I think you're going to have a better chance of retaining those guys than, somebody you're bringing in from Texas or California who's, almost a straight mercenary. And, so I do think as many players we can have who have ties to these areas, they have intrinsic benefits of, hey, I not only want to have a great experience playing college football, but I know getting a business degree from the University of Idaho is going to help me, later in life because I want to live in the Treasure Valley. And I'll have a lot of connections in the business world. I think those are some, innate things that can help you pull through. And that's, I think a common thing with like South Dakota State where I was at, they're having a lot of really good players come back who are Power 5 type players who could go in the portal that are staying. And that's a common thread. A lot of them are South Dakota kids, or they're right over the border in Iowa, an hour and a half away. And I think those ties are a little deeper when you can recruit guys more local.
Going back to your predecessor, we've had a lot of conversations about the University of Idaho football schedule, and I think you found the balance you're looking for in the non-conference. You kind of got a small and a medium and large, but as you know, the red flag here is that all three of those are on the road. You open up the season with 3 consecutive road games, and 5 of the first 6 are on the road. That tells me a lot of Big Sky games late in the season are in Moscow, including a couple of big ones against the Montana schools. But how do you prepare in the spring for playing 5 of those first 6 games on the road?
It's a battle. We probably should have taken the trip down to Boise just to get another experience of staying in a hotel and playing. But, I felt like we competed well on the road last year. We were 3-1 in the conference on the road last year, and then the 2 Power 5 games we played, we competed well, even though we lost both of those. I think we just have to embrace it. Again, I was the driving force behind the change to have an all Division I schedule. Just because I do feel in the Big Sky Conference, just like last year, if you can get to 7 Division I wins in our conference, you're going to have a heck of a chance at I think you should be in the playoffs every year if you have 7 Division I wins. So I thought we were taking a risk in playing a Division II team. So I was the driving force behind that. I'll even out in the future. But, you got to win on the road. We're going to be a while before we're getting a top seed in the FCS and have home field all the way through like South Dakota State did till they got to the championship this year. But it'll prepare us and it'll be good experience for us. And, again, the onus, we got to find a way to sneak, at least a couple of those non-conference games and then make a good run in conference because our conference is so good. You usually have to be, 8-0 or 7-1 at the minimum to win it.
Last thing for me, Coach, and, Prater mentioned it, the star power you have on this team. People know who Gio McCoy is. They know Hayden Hatton. They know Jermaine Jackson. I mean, what's their ceiling? Like, how much better can I expect that McCoy kid to be as a sophomore? I mean, Hayden Hatton feels like he's been up in Moscow forever. I don't ever want him to leave, but I mean, the season he had last season, one of the great FCS receiving seasons we've seen in quite some time. I mean, what are the expectations for you on how good, Jermaine Jackson, does he have another 1,000-yard year in him? Just those big-time, big-name star players up there. What are your expectations?
Well, I challenged both our I challenged our coaches this week that I think we have to do a really good job coaching because sometimes when you have especially when you have it's a little easier when you're just coaching the quarterbacks and you have one guy on the field. But sometimes, like if you're the receivers coach or the D-line coach or the O-line coach and you have 3 or 4 or 5 guys on the field, it's easy to focus a lot on the weak link and spend all the time, trying to strengthen your weakest spot and kind of ignoring the guy who's a real high performer because it's tougher to get those guys to improve when they're already really good. And you can a lot of times raise the average by getting the worst guy better. But I think especially in this transfer portal era, we got to do a great job of finding unique ways. And a lot of times it might be something you do extra just for them or extra film study to get them better. And then I challenged our guys who were all conference type performers last year is, hey, you really it's a lot easier to go Prater knows this from losing all that weight. Like I said, it's a lot easier to lose that first 20 than the next 20. And to get better when you're already pretty damn good, you got to really be disciplined. You got to really be refined, and we need our guys to do that this year. I challenge those guys. They got to have a great summer. It was really our last team meeting here before the end of the semester in the spring game. I challenge them. They got to be creative and look for ways to really up their game because you got to have your leaders, your veterans play your best football to be a conference champion.
Well, you got everybody really excited, Coach. Enjoy the rest of spring. It's a Friday night in Moscow, ESPN Plus, 7 p.m. Pacific time, the Idaho Vandals spring game. Enjoy the draft this weekend, Coach. I know as a football guy, you love that stuff, and we can't wait to bring you back on, man. Great stuff, Coach Eck.
Hey, I appreciate it. Spring is sprung here in Moscow, 66 degrees right now. I'm going to go get a walk like Prater and try to get in better shape like him.
Thanks, Coach. Love you, buddy.
Appreciate you guys.
That's Jason Eck. High expectations up in Moscow in that spring game. Going to be fun. I know I'll be checking that out this weekend. Friday night, going to be fun, Prater, with the Idaho Vandals. Good stuff. Brian, Blind Appeal, College Football Hour. They specialize in offering you the right brands, the right blinds, the right price, the right colors. They're going to complement your interior. Go to blindappeal.com. You'll see what I'm talking about. For life, for real. Our Blind Appeal College Football Hour, Mountain West Draft Prospects. How many Boise State players do you think are in the top 10 of Mountain West draftable prospects? We'll continue. We come back. Prater on the Ballgame, Idaho Sports Talk, KTIK, The Ticket.
From the Beacon Plumbing Traffic Studios, this is Ticket Traffic.
Sponsored by Veolia Water Idaho. Veolia crews are conducting their annual water